Hey there, everybody. So today we are going to get into some transnational corporations and international trade organizations as part of our discussion of 20th century economics. So let's dive right in. Okay, so one of the big things is that we really have the rise of international trade agreements and unions. Okay, we're not going to get into all of them, but you have things like the European Economic Community, which eventually leads to the EU, Mercosur, which was a economic union of nations in South America. The ASEAN, which was the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. All three of those organizations, you can see the maps of the nations were involved, were basically this idea of promoting cooperation, free trade, to really expand the overall strength of a region economically. And in general, all of these were pretty darn effective. In 1984, you also had something known as GATT, of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and this was an international, worldwide agreement that the goal was to eliminate or lower many protective tariffs to see that greater trade occurs. And a lot of people look at GATT as one of the big moves to developing a global economy. And just to give you an idea, the average rate of world tariffs before the deal was 40%, and now the average amount of tariffs that a nation has, protective tariffs-wise, is down to 5%. And with that expansion of trade, GATT would develop into what is known as the World Trade Organization, or the WTO. So the WTO is an intergovernmental organization that regulates international trade between nations. It was developed with the Marrakesh Agreement, which was signed on January 1st, 1995, to replace GATT. And basically, it provides a framework for negotiating trade agreements and dispute resolution. Okay, that's really, really important. Its center is in Geneva. And why Geneva? Because Geneva's beautiful. Look at Geneva. That's why you're going to go to Geneva, because it's great. All right, so we have positives and negatives. Let's look at it. So what do people see as positive is that this aids developing nations, which are actually 2/3 of its members, in gaining access to markets and resources. It helps resolve trade disputes. It also helps to prevent those trade disputes from going into war. We see it has generally increased trade, leading to jobs and overall increased economic activity. The negatives, a lot of people see it as not transparent, which, to be fair, it really isn't. Some folks feel that it actually has allowed the rich to get richer, creating a larger wealth gap, and it also allows wealthy nations to take advantage of those developing nations as well. We also link it to the environmental issues, because the focus of the World Trade Organization is so much on manufacturing and industrialization that that environment gets pushed to the wayside, and that there's been a lot of damage as a result of the World Trade Organization's policies. And then some people actually look at it as too restrictive. Folks that believe in the full free market think that there should not be any regulations on trade, and that the World Trade Organization has actually slowed it down. But this is probably, along with things like the EU and stuff like that, as well as other trade agreements that exist in the world, this is the big theme. Big multi-nation unions coming together to develop trade deals. No longer is it just nation A and nation B and nation A and nation B. It's developing these large, broad agreements that in general have proved to be pretty effective. And as a result, we're starting to get some corporations that are just massive. Okay. So what are the core concepts of multinational organizations here? Okay. So basically, this is a corporation, a multinational corporation. Okay. They're huge. These are the biggest companies in the world. All right. And there's examples on the right of some of them. Okay, so multinational corporations are legally incorporated in one nation, but they sell goods and services abroad. Many are companies that are either in knowledge or manufacturing. Okay, Apple can be knowledge and manufacturing. Twitter and Facebook would really just be knowledge. Banking is part of knowledge. It's huge. And the key thing is, with all these new transportation networks, which I believe I talked about in a different video, they can now reach everywhere globally. And one such place is India, where we really start to see the development of these. A lot of, yes, American companies and European companies are big, but I wanted to mention another nation a company that is really, really big. India in post-World War II will start to put a lot of emphasis on education. It's really became a huge place for software and information technology. They get lots of outside investment, and it's an area where you're seeing some of the biggest growth in the middle class in the world, and you're seeing some potential for their annual GDP growth. Remember, 3% GDP growth is good. 2018, 6.8%. Then look at that, 2017 and 2018, 2019, 2020. Okay, so that was the initial forecast. That's what they changed it to. But look at that. That's pretty impressive. And one of those companies that comes out of this was Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. This was a company founded in Mumbai in the year 1945, founded by Harikrishnan, Jayakrishnan, and Jagdish Mahindra and Malik Muhammad. The current leader of the company, or CEO, is Anand Mahindra, who is Jagdish's grandson. And it started off as a steel company and eventually expanded into making Jeeps, and then they just went huge. That's a picture of Anand today. So the company today is a huge vehicle manufacturer, okay? They're one of the largest vehicle manufacturers in India, and it's actually the largest manufacturer of tractors in the world. They also own other companies like Peugeot Motorcycles, Riva Electric Cars, and SsangYong Motor Company in South Korea. We don't really see their vehicles in the United States, but they're huge in places like India, South Africa, Italy, China, and the Philippines. All of those are really big markets. They're also involved in electrical supply, and their generators and batteries are used worldwide. And they've also, have received several awards for socially responsible corporate practices and efforts to invade the environment. And actually, as of, I believe, recently, they are the 17th largest company in the entire world. So they're not all just US-based businesses. Some other giant businesses you might know, of course, are Google and Microsoft. Google actually, and which now the parent company is Alphabet. That's the official name of the company, but let's be honest, we're all just going to still call them Google. They were actually, in 2019, Google was the most visited website in the world, and the fun fact of that, the number 2 most visited website in the world was YouTube, which is owned by Alphabet/Google. Microsoft, perhaps the largest software company in the world as well. You can see their programs all over the place. And then we have the largest food company in the world, which is Nestle. And look at that. Look at all the different things that Nestle owns. Everybody thinks Nestle and Nestle Crunch Bar and candy. Sure. But then L'Oreal and all of that stuff that's involved there. There's some more things over here. Look, they also technically own some stuff about perfume. And I mean, everywhere. We just see these giant businesses. Nestle is a Swiss company. And so, look, I've talked about an Indian company, a couple American companies, Swiss companies. These companies are just massive. And they can control things economically as, obviously they control economically because of the amount of revenue that they generate, the people that they employed. But they also have massive political power. Okay, I always use this example. I believe a couple of years ago was the summer of 2018. I could be wrong, but I want to think it's 2018. Could be 2019, but I want to say 2018. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, one of the richest individuals in the world, did a tour of Africa, and in every single country he went to in Africa, he actually got to visit with the president of that. MrLynnHistory does not get to do that. Okay, I've been to a number of countries in the world, have yet to meet a president. I have met a president of the United States of America, but I'm not going to tell you which one. Moving on. Okay. So what are the largest companies in the world? Well, Walmart is the largest, as you see on the top right. Yes, you're like, whoa, Walmart. Yes, it's everywhere. Number 2 is Sinopec, which is an oil and gas company. An oil and chemical company in China. And number 3 is Royal Dutch Shell, which of course is a oil and energy company out of the Netherlands. For my computer fans out there, Apple is the number 11 company in the world, and Amazon is number 13. Interestingly enough, companies 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all energy, and companies 9 and 10 are automotive. And so that should give you that sense of where all this money is at. All right, guys. So hopefully that gave you an idea of the size and the mass of these companies and how big they are today. And we'll get one more video in here, talk about kind of how this is also impacting other areas of the world. See you soon.